What's up, guys? Finally, the 2022 NHL Entry Draft has come to an end. We are exhausted. We were there for the pre draft, for the first day and the second day, and now it's time to talk the biggest trades that happened the last couple of days. And we have a couple to discuss. Kirby Dach going to Montreal, Peter Mrazek going to Chicago, Zach Cassian going to Arizona, Vitek Vanecek going to New Jersey, Tony DeAngelo going to Philly, Luke Kunin going to San Jose, and obviously we already discussed the Brinkat going to Ottawa and um, Gorgiev going to the
Uh,
Colorado
Colorado.
Avalanche in
and
two
and
previous episodes,
and Romanov to the Islanders
and
too.
Romanov to the Islanders and Husso to Detroit Red Wings. So, guys, let's start off with the first trade. Our hometown team, the Montreal Canadiens. So, Kirby Dach going to Chicago for the 13 overall pick, which
Kirby Dach's going to Chicago.
Kirby Dach going to Montreal, and in Chicago's um way, you have the 13 overall pick that was acquired from the New York Islanders in a trade that sent Romanov and a third round pick to
So
the Islanders, and also Chicago got a 66th overall pick. But Luca's going to get into details of who
so
those picks were.
so basically Montreal. So this is how it happened. So basically, Bettman announced that Montreal had traded Romanov, and it's not a third round pick; it's a fourth round pick
Oh, my bad.
to the Islanders, which was 98th overall. Uh, for the 2022 first round pick, which was 13th overall. With the fourth round pick that the Islanders got in the deal, along with Romanov, they drafted Isaiah George, who is a 18-year-old player, left defenseman. So yeah, pretty self-explanatory there. And then after that, the Canadiens flipped the first round pick to the Chicago Blackhawks, along with a third round pick, which was 66th overall, for Kirby Dach. With the 13th overall pick that the Chicago Blackhawks acquired, they drafted Frank Nazar, who a lot of us in our mock draft had him, some of us had him as low as top 10. Some of us had him at 15. So he went 13th overall to the Chicago Blackhawks. And with the third round pick that they got, 66th overall, they drafted Gavin Hayes, who is a left winger out of the Flint Firebirds of the OHL. So that's pretty much the first trade. For the Islanders, they get themselves a young 22-year-old defenseman in Romanov who, has had ups and downs in Montreal. I think his offensive abilities, a lot of people expected him to be better offensively than what he is at the moment. And I think his numbers aren't the best for a guy who we expected to be better offensively, but he's a hard-hitting shutdown defenseman. He's a guy that's going to, play the body, be physical. He blocks shots. So I think the Islanders, who are already a good defensive team, adding a guy like Romanov makes a ton of sense. As for the Canadiens, well, they acquire Kirby Dach, a young 21-year-old centerman. He's had ups and downs in Chicago. He had a really good, a decent rookie year, nothing too spectacular there, but dealt with some injuries. So, unfortunately, it wasn't the best rookie year. But then in year two, he bounced back. He had 10 points in 18 games, and there was a lot of promise with Kirby Dach because it's like, okay, he's starting to find this form again. The only issue was that, again, he dealt with an injury that kept him out for the rest of the season. And then in his third year this year, 26 points in 70 games, not really the best numbers for him, for a guy who went third overall in 2019. So Kirby Dach, it's kind of a change of scenery for him in Montreal. We'll see kind of what happens there. I know that there's a lot of upside with him, and a lot of people believe in him. I'm one of them. I think Kirby Dach, with the right system and with the right coach in Marty St. Louis, could get the best out of Kirby Dach. So we'll see what happens. I don't necessarily hate the trade. I think it's a good move for both the Islanders and the Habs. And as for Chicago, I mean, look, they had traded Alex DeBrincat to the Ottawa Senators earlier in the day. They went to go make that trade with Kirby Dach as well. They acquired themselves two draft picks in that deal, a third and a first-round pick, the first-round pick being Frank Nazar. I think that's a good selection for them. I think he's exactly what can help them, speed up that rebuild a little bit, but Chicago's going full teardown. So, and I think Nazar is going to be a big part of that moving forward. So I think it's a good move for all three teams. I think all three teams benefited in this case. And I think only time will tell. But, I want to
Well,
know your thoughts,
well,
kind of.
Luca went in depth already. So very quickly, my
Yeah,
thoughts. Kirby Dach, 6'4" center, has the size, has the potential. There's a reason why he was selected third overall in 2019. Obviously, he had a wrist injury that really affected his game during the World Juniors a year and a half ago, if I'm not mistaken, or 2 years ago.
yeah,
Hasn't been quite the same. I honestly believe Chicago gave up way too early on him. You already know my thoughts on the Brinkat. I think those are two guys that should have stayed for the rebuild, not been traded. So I think that was wrong on their part. But Chicago getting Nazar is a fantastic pick, and for their 66th overall pick, that could be an NHL caliber player, or maybe he never makes NHL. In terms of the New York Islanders, Romanov, hard hitting defenseman, plays the body, not afraid to go in the corners, very good with puck possession. The thing is, his offensive game needs to progress because he's not at that level that he's supposed to be at. The potential is there, but he hasn't reached expectations yet. And obviously, with the fourth pick, again, same thing. It could be NHL caliber, or maybe that player is never going to play in the NHL. And that's my thoughts on the deal. Everyone gets what they want. New York Islanders are developing a younger core. They already have Dobson, they have Pellick, they have Pulak. Now they have Romanov. So I think that closes off their top four. So Lou gets what he wants. The Habs get a top center that's going to be a 1-2 punch with Suzuki. Instead of drafting right, they go with Slavkovsky, and they had a successful draft. And those are my thoughts on the three-way deal. And thanks for explaining it a lot better than I did at the start of the video.
yeah. Well, I mean, look, I don't know if Chris has anything he wants to add to that, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you guys pretty much touched everything. I mean, the only thing I would put is, Kirby Dach still has a lot of potential. I don't understand why Chicago would pass up on him and the Brinkat. I mean, you would expect if you're gonna rebuild, those would be your main pieces to focus on. But I guess they're trying to go in a different direction. Listen, the Habs I think got a hell of a steal. I mean, a lot of people are saying that Romanov is a beast, and he's a top four defenseman on any team. I mean, listen, I think the Habs have so many defensive prospects, and the fact that probably they couldn't work out a deal with him is the reason as to why he moved. But even if this deal falls flat, like if Kirby Dach becomes like a bust or something, I don't see it as a big loss, trading away Romanov for him with all the defensive prospects we have. I have more confidence in Barron, Norlinder, and Gooley, or even Logan Mayu becoming way better than Romanov, that I don't really care that, we would trade him away for a bust if he does
A
become
lot of
one.
good defensemen in the prospect pool for
I
Yeah.
Montreal. But
uh,
we can
I
move on to the next trade, or
I mean, I was gonna actually move on to the next
okay.
trade, but moving on to the next trade, the Chicago Blackhawks also made Chicago were very active at the draft. They also acquired another first round pick, which was 25th overall from the Toronto Maple Leafs, and goaltender Peter Mrazek, who has 2 years left at $3.8 million. He waived his modified no trade clause to go to these. Well, he had a modified no trade clause, and I guess Chicago was one of his teams, so he ended up going to Chicago. And in return, the Leafs acquired a second round pick, which was 38 overall. With that pick, they drafted Fraser Minton, who is a defensive center, who's still young and has got decent potential. Played for Canada.
Which I met at the draft. I shook his
Yeah,
hand. He said,
and
"Congratulations."
so Chicago with the 25th pick drafted, in my opinion, a little bit of a reach in Sam Rinzel. For me, I looked at him. I thought he was more of a second rounder than a first rounder, but I guess Chicago liked him. Played for the Waterloo Blackhawks this year and the Chaska High School as well. So he looks like a decent defenseman. But I thought he was more of a second rounder compared to a first rounder. So interesting move there for sure for the Chicago Blackhawks. But they take on Peter Mrazek's $3.8 million contract, which, Mrazek last year, 88 save percentage, struggled in Toronto. I think he could bounce back in Chicago, but I mean, look, Chicago's rebuilding, so
I mean, they have Lankinen. He was supposed to be like their go-to before they traded for
yeah,
Fleury, but
he's an
they ultimately
unrestricted.
trading away to Minnesota, and he signed an extension with Minnesota for 2 years. So Lankinen and Mrazek seems like the duo heading into the
Yeah,
season for Chicago.
Lankinen's an unrestricted free agent, right? So they have to sign him, but it's good to know that they've got at least one goaltender in Mrazek. I think Mrazek plays. I don't think he's as bad as we saw last year. I think he's still a decent goaltender who, could help Chicago win some games next year and actually be somewhat relevant. But in terms of that, I think they win this deal in the sense that they got a first round pick out of it, and they're taking $3.8 million out of Mrazek. And the Leafs, look, they clear cap space, which is something they need. They need to sign Jack Campbell. We already know that they might not sign Ilya Mikheyev. They might not sign Rasmus Sandin. So the Leafs needed cap space. It helps them a little bit. And I think that, there's not really much else to this deal apart from that. I think, they're happy to move on from Mrazek. It's just a matter of who the Leafs are going to sign as a goaltender now, because currently they have no goalies.
And my thoughts on the deal, honestly, it's a loss for Toronto. The fact that you have to trade away a goalie that you signed the previous offseason, there goes another first-round pick for Toronto. That's a complete waste. They could have used that, especially with the a lot of players, having the need to sign an extension. They can't afford them. So having a first round caliber player that most likely would make the NHL, 25th overall, I mean, that would have been good for them. But they traded away, they traded down, to get rid of a bad contract. And what are the chances to even sign Campbell? He's gonna hit the market most likely, and I think teams like Buffalo, not New Jersey anymore because they got Vanecek, and Edmonton are going to really hit hard at Campbell, and they're going to take advantage of the cap space that was made for both teams. So, I mean, those are my thoughts. That's it.
Well, I mean, and I don't know if you really want to add to that as well, but I mean, there wasn't really much to that.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're going to have no goalie, I have a feeling, going into the season. Not even this. Well, I mean, listen, unless they sign someone, I don't know with what caps. I'm. You know what? I feel like one of the top 4 guys is probably going to get moved. Probably not Tavares and Matthews. I'm looking more at Marner or Neil or Nylander getting moved.
Well, we have John Washall saying that Darcy Kemper to the Leafs, which is a possibility.
Listen, it is a possibility, but how long are you going to sign him for? The guy's
He's been
pretty
linked.
old.
He's been linked to the Capitals, and they're saying that it's more likely than not that he will sign the Capitals, especially after Vanecek got traded to the Capitals. And I think it's ready. Let's move on to that trade now.
Yeah.
Vanecek.
No, we should go by the day, right? Because there's still another trade. There was one more trade that happened on the day 1 of the trade deadline, which was
the Zach Cassian.
Zach Cassian trade. And basically, the Zach Cassian trade was, another cap dump for the Oilers. They move on from Zach Cassian, but the Oilers had to pay a lot. They got rid of Zach Cassian, their 2022 first-round pick, which was 29th overall. That was used to select Maverick Lamoureux. A 2024 third-round pick and a 2025 second-round pick going to Arizona. For the Oilers, they get a 2022 first-round pick, 32nd overall, which they used to draft Reed Schaefer. Now, this deal, look, I mean, it's a pure cap dump. But, I mean, the Oilers still got a first. I know they moved 3 spots down, essentially, and they did pay a lot, and I still think Arizona wins this deal. But the Oilers still drafted someone in the first round, right? They drafted Reed Schaefer, who I think they wanted at 29 anyways, ended up getting him at 32, so it's not a big deal. But they had to give up, a third-round pick and a second-round pick to essentially get rid of Zach Cassian's contract, because the first-round picks kind of canceled each other out. So, I think Arizona, again, stocking up on draft picks. They get a guy like Zach Cassian who, he's had good years. He's a fourth line, third line guy, can play a depth role for you. He's still 19 points in 58 games. He's
just not worth the contract anymore.
He's not worth the contract that he's paid, but he's gonna be serviceable enough for Arizona. He's got 2 years left this year and next year on his deal. So look, Arizona's they needed to, they need to take money in anyways. It helps the Oilers. And again, we're talking about another team that's looking for goaltending. Well, the Edmonton Oilers are another one that, have the cap space now to potentially go out and acquire a goaltender. So
can you specify who was drafted with the picks used?
It's just Lamoureux was drafted.
Lamoureux went to Arizona with the 29th pick, and Reed Schaefer was the 32nd pick going to Edmonton.
Oh, yes. Thank you for clarifying. Sorry, I know you mentioned it before. I was thinking, I was looking, I forgot that there was 24th and 25th.
Yeah, 24 and 2025. Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, well, those were their future picks.
Yeah, but look, my thoughts very quickly. If Arizona is able to sign a starting caliber goaltender like Jack Campbell or maybe even Darcy Kemper, if he doesn't go to Washington like everyone's linking him to, since Ville Husso is off the board, and they're able to re-sign Evander Kane, then the deal is fair. But if they fail to re-sign Evander Kane and fail to get a starting goaltender in the free agency, then Arizona clearly wins this deal, in my opinion.
Yeah. Anyways, moving on to the next trade, because I don't think there's really much else to say. Moving on to the next deal, Detroit and St. Louis. Detroit traded away a third-round pick, 73rd overall, which was used to draft Alexander Kakismäki, who is a center from Finland. In exchange, they acquired the rights to Ville Husso, which literally 2 minutes after they acquired Ville Husso, signed them to a 3-year deal worth $4.75 million. I don't look. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't really understand this trade, and it sounds to me like.
Don't
And I'm
question
not.
Stevie.
No. I'm not trying to doubt Yzerman, but you have to understand something here, okay? You're getting a goalie who's 27. Nedeljkovic is younger, and you have Kosa coming up. So acquiring a goalie like Ville Husso, who, in my opinion, yes, he's a good. I think he had a good year this year with St. Louis, but again, he hasn't played enough games as a starting goaltender in the NHL. And I know that likely he will probably be a 1A, 1B with Nedeljkovic, but 3 years at $4.7 million, that's I find that's too much, at least for me. And maybe I might be wrong. A lot of people might disagree with me on that, but I just think I look at Ville Husso and I look at the games that he's played and I look at his playoffs last year with St. Louis in the 7 games that he played. And I say to myself, like, is he really worth almost $5 million for a guy who only really became the starting goalie this year? I'm not so sure about that. So look, I'm kind of, I think if you're St. Louis, I think you're kind of happy about that because listen, you could get a backup goalie who can probably do a lot better. Or look, if you look at what this AHL team has, Joel Hofer had a really good year in the AHL. Maybe he becomes the backup goalie down there. So I don't think St. Louis is too upset about losing Husso, but I just personally think it's a bit of an overpayment on Husso in terms of the contract that he was given. And I don't really get it from Detroit's standpoint, but you know what? Listen, it is what it is. Yzerman seemed to be happy, and I know Chris is going to say you should never doubt Yzerman.
He's the fleece master.
In this case, I have to kind of just I'm not saying that it's a bad trade. I'm just saying I don't really get it.
Well, it's because you're looking at it from a one trade standpoint. But if you're looking at the overall plan that he most likely has in mind, like he did it for a reason. I think it's a building block for some kind of move that's coming later on or for some kind of reason. So I would be patient on this one, but I've learned not to. You don't doubt Steve Yzerman. He knows what he's doing.
Well, I'm not. It's not a question. I'll mention this, and I think now it makes more sense. Arshia comes out and says, "I think the dollar amount was more about getting to the clap floor." Also, that could be it too. But I think like I said, right, 27-year-old goaltender only really played 40 games as a starting goalie in the NHL. If that's worth $4.75 million, and I know that they need to get to the cap floor. That's a lot of money, right? And so I just hope that in Husso's case that it doesn't become a situation last year, kind of like what Nedeljkovic was, where he struggled a lot and he was kind of thrown under the bus. So I guess we'll see what happens with Detroit.
Well,
but again,
you just answered why Stevie Y made this deal, because Nedeljkovic had too much on his shoulders coming to a team that is progressing and trending upwards. Yes, they have the prospects, they have a fantastic team, but he could not do it alone. So adding Ville Husso is insurance for Nedeljkovic to properly grow. You're signing a guy to 3 years, so he's currently in his prime, so 27 up until 30 years old. So that's fantastic in terms of the term, and by then Sebastian Koza should be with the team. And despite him having a fantastic World Juniors that came quickly to an end because of COVID, he will be on the team in the next 3 years. But I think he still needs a little bit more time to get to that level of a top 5 goaltender, which I think he is capable of being in the near future. So having Husso and Nedeljkovic as your 1-2, as your 1A and 1B is not bad whatsoever, in my opinion. I think it helps Detroit and it pushes them to a wild card spot, since that team is progressing very well with guys like Maurice Sider, Lucas Raymond, and the rest of the company on that team. So
I guess. And I think, look, another team that also made a move, and actually a team that was linked to Ville Husso before he was traded, was the New Jersey Devils. And right after Ville Husso got announced, the New Jersey Devils came out and said, we're going to make our own trade for a goalie, and they went to go get Vitek Vanecek from the Washington Capitals. Now, this deal was a little bit more in-depth, right? So the Devils acquired Vitek Vanecek and a second-round pick, which was Winnipeg's pick, 46th overall, to draft Seamus Casey. Washington acquired a 2022 second-round pick, 37th overall, which they used to draft Ryan Chesley, and a 2022 third-round pick, which was 70th overall, which they used to draft Alexander Suzdalev, who is a Russian left winger who played this year in the Swedish league.
And we had Chesley pretty high on our
on
your guys' list. He didn't really make mine, but
that's it on my list.
I
don't remember actually. I have to go back and check.
I had Chesley going to Toronto originally.
I think I had Chesley going to St. Louis, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, I was, Washington was closer in that sense. But I like this move for both teams. I think New Jersey get themselves a goalie in Vanecek who, has had ups and downs. And I think that, for me, I'm a big Vanecek fan. I think if you ask both Chris and Chris, they'll tell you that I like Vanecek more than I like Samsonov. But I just think personally speaking, there's a lot of issues in Washington in terms of the goaltending situation, and I think they believe in Samsonov more than Vanecek. But listen, I think New Jersey gets themselves.
You want to know why?
Decent goalie.
It's really simple why.
I know what it is. You said it yesterday.
Because Alexander Ovechkin runs the team, and he wants as many Russians on that team, and that's why they picked who they picked in the first round. And please, Luca.
Well, hey, that was a hell of a steal. Let's be honest here. It was a steal. Like do me
the honors and mention this guy's name because I want to hear it.
What do you mean?
The Washington Capitals pick.
Ryan Chesley.
No, in the first round. The Russian.
Ivan Miroshnichenko.
Well, there you go. As soon as they picked that guy,
it was a steal, though.
Yes, it is.
Oh yeah, of course it's a
the
steal.
Guy's a top 10 talent. Like the only reason why he didn't go so high was because of the issues going on with the Russian players,
and also the fact that he had Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Well, that too, So, but he's a hell of a player, and what's wrong with having Russians on the team? I mean, listen,
there's no problem.
No, I know that, but I mean, we're all theorizing that Columbus was gonna go for Finnish players because Patty Laine is there. I mean, sure that's what everybody tries to do, right? Please the top guys.
My only question with the Vanecek deal is, does this mean that they're going Vanecek Blackwood? And I think they are, right?
That's not bad whatsoever.
But my thing is that again, and it's a question of with New Jersey, of they don't really have a true starter. And I know that people are gonna say, "Oh, look, Blackwood's a true starter," and he was. But last year, if you look at what Blackwood did last year, it wasn't so impressive. And I think that New Jersey aren't too thrilled about Blackwood because of other personal things that don't really have to do with hockey, but adding Vanecek, I think, allows the Devils to be like, you know what? We actually have two competent goaltenders. And I know that Jonathan Bernier, I believe, is still under contract. I could be wrong. I'm going to just check that now to make sure because I don't want to say something that he still has one more year left at $4 million. And there's no guarantees that he comes back or plays at the start of the year. But if Jonathan Bernier comes in, you now have three goaltenders, right? You have Jonathan Bernier, Mackenzie Blackwood, and Vitek Vanecek. You're going to I think Vanecek's the odd man out in that case. Blackwood's the odd man out in that case. So it becomes a really interesting scenario for the Devils. Like I said, I'm an advocate for Vanecek. I believe in him. I don't think he was given a fair shot in Washington. And I don't think that I think Washington threw him under the bus a lot of the times too. So I hope that in his fresh start in New Jersey, he's going to prove everybody wrong and show them that
my thoughts very quickly. My concluding thoughts on this deal is that Vanecek is going to be what Ville Husso is going to be to Nedeljkovic. Vanecek's going to do the same thing with Blackwood. He's going to kind of like help him grow as a player since he's more experienced and he's older in age. And I think it's going to be a 1A, 1B, and I think Bernier is the man out, in my opinion. And if it doesn't work out with Blackwood and Vanecek and Blackwood still struggling, then only I see Blackwood.
I'm gonna make a quick prediction. I think if Toronto can't get a goalie, they end up going for Mackenzie Blackwood. That's just a gut feeling that I have. I might be wrong. I think if
And
Toronto can't get a goalie, they go there.
and
Anyways,
Washington getting Chelsea, a guy that I had in the first round who dropped to where they picked them at 37. Washington, in my opinion, needs to work on their defensive core a little bit more. I think Orlov and Carlson, they need a lot more help than just them two. And getting a guy like Chelsea, I think is a fantastic ad. And let's go to the blockbuster that happened on day 2. Tony
yeah.
DeAngelo going to Philly.
I don't
Well,
understand this trade. I
that's
really don't.
that's probably the biggest trade of yesterday. I would say in terms of just the quality of the player that ends up going. But the Carolina Hurricanes traded away Tony DeAngelo's rights to the Philadelphia Flyers, along with a 7th round pick in 2022, which was 220th overall, which turned out to be Alexis Gendron. With that, the Philadelphia Flyers traded away a 4th round pick, 101st overall, which turned into Simon Forsmark, a 2023 3rd round pick, which is a conditional pick, which is Carolina will receive the lowest of Philadelphia, Florida, and the Rangers' 3rd round pick in 2023 draft. So that means the lowest pick ends up going to Carolina in 2023. And in 2024, they acquire a 2nd round pick from Philly. Now, Chris just made a comment before saying he doesn't understand this trade. I'm going to be honest, I do. I don't understand it for one reason, because I don't think that him and Tortorella are going to get along. But
well, no, see, I disagree with that. I feel like the only reason why he fits on that team is because because we spoke about what the Flyers need to do to fix up that team, and they used to be known as those guys that just hits everybody, and it's the team you don't want to play against. Like, they're aggressive.
A team of grit, a team that actually cares.
D'Angelo, he fits in that character, and so does Tortorella. Like, that's what the Flyers are going for.
They have characters.
So I see it happening. I just don't understand why Carolina would do this deal. Like, not even a 1st round pick.
No cap space.
Yeah, they're liquidating a lot of players. They're letting go of Vincent Trocheck.
Maybe not sign Kotkaniemi to a ridiculous deal.
Nino Ryder's hitting the market too. There's rumors that they might trade Martin Nikas as well.
Well, now look, Carolina has $19 million in cap space. All right, so look, this is the thing. They have to sign Natchez, which I think they will. Right, Max Domi's an unrestricted free agent. Maybe they bring him back. Niederreiter, like you mentioned, they probably want to get a deal done with him and Vincent Trocheck as well. So that's going to be money that they're not going to be able to do. There's Ethan Bear, who was granted permission to talk to other teams. Yeah, but I think one thing that we have to take into consideration here when we talk about Anthony DeAngelo is that it's the fact that there's a lot of controversy regarding Anthony DeAngelo. And I know that no matter what, we haven't heard anything.
He had a very good season.
We don't really know the behind the scenes of Anthony DeAngelo. We don't know how his tenure went in Carolina. We saw the numbers, and yeah, the numbers were good, and he played well. And he definitely showed that, he's got his offensive abilities are there. And I think Philly's going to benefit from that. But the problem with Anthony DeAngelo has always been, what he's, his values and kind of what he's been and what his reputation is in the NHL. And I think that in terms of him getting traded, it could just be a situation where they can't sign him and he asked for too much and they're like, let's go. Or it could be a behind the scenes thing. I don't think that'll ever come out, but I think one quote that was very interesting today that I found very interesting was the fact that a Philly reporter asked him if he was racist, and he turned around and said, "No, I'm not. I don't think I would be a racist." Which, if you saw if you heard his time in New York, you would beg to differ. So I just think that there's a lot of things I think behind the scenes that we don't know about the whole Tony DeAngelo situation, and I just think that that's probably the reason Carolina got rid of him. But I think in terms of Philly, if we're going to talk about Tony DeAngelo, the player, I think Philly's getting themselves a hell of a player, and I think they're getting a guy that's going to help them.
They signed to an extension, 2 years at $5 million.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a clear steal for Philadelphia. I really, I would pass off. I would pass over Trocheck to sign DeAngelo any day. I really don't understand. Well, I mean, I value defense more than offense, so that's probably why I would do that. But
I would still resign Trocheck. He's a very underrated player, in my opinion.
But if you're picking between Trocheck and DeAngelo, who are you going with? I'm going with DeAngelo any day.
I go with the Trocheck because of his character and because he's able to do on the ice. So.
Well, I think.
Yeah, but they got a lot of young players that are up in
If Carolina
so you don't really need Trocheck.
If Carolina want to boost their defense, there's a few guys that they can get in free agency.
And
That could be very interesting. So I think that they did what they had to do with DeAngelo. I think it's a good move for Philly in the sense that they get exactly what they need, which is defense and a bolster on their decor. And I'm curious to see how he's going to be with Tortorella. I'll be honest with you, I really don't think that's going to work. I'm going to completely straight up. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't think that's going to
I
work
mean,
at all.
we'll see what happens.
So, anyways, that's
But
my opinion.
look, they get John Tortorella. They draft Cutter Gauthier at number 5 in the draft, and now they get Tony DeAngelo. So far, so good in my opinion. And we'll see what other moves they make. I think they're going to be pretty active in the free agency this year. And finally, our last trade, not too
Not too
great
great.
in terms of what was given. Luke Conan to the San Jose Sharks, and
Yeah, that's
Nashville
true.
receives John Leonard and a 2023 third overall pick.
Third round pick, which turned out to just be next year's pick. It's two fourth liners essentially getting traded for each other. John Leonard's 23. Played 14 games with the Sharks this year, 2 points in those games, but had a really good AHL run, 32 points in 45 games with the San Jose Barracuda. There's definitely something there. Luke Cunnin, 24, already going on his third team. 22 points in 82 games for Luke Cunnin. He's a third line guy. And I think that, it's two teams swapping players that I think maybe just need to change the scenery. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. I think San Jose, grabbing a guy like Luke Cunnin, that gives them another, depth option. But I don't really know what the plan is for San Jose, to be honest. It's a little bit of a weird situation down there in San Jose because of
And
the whole Vlasic and Carlson contract.
yeah,
So we don't really know what to read in terms of what San Jose is trying to be. So
irrelevant trade that doesn't really have an impact, very minor impact. But the most important thing is that they did re-sign Philip Forsberg today.
yes,
So I mean
eight
that's very
years,
good.
8 years, $8.5 million per season, which I think is an absolute steal. I'm going to be completely honest with
Yeah.
you. I saw that contract and I saw the money and I was like, you know what, $8.5 million. That's. I was thinking. I looked at Forsberg and I'm like 9 million, 9.5 maybe for Forsberg, and he went to 8.5. Like that's a good deal for Nashville. I'm kind of glad they made that deal because I think that's a great contract for Forsberg. And look, he's off the market. Nashville don't have to stress about it. Forsberg doesn't have to stress about it, and it allows them to be competitive now. So so it's good.
Well, guys, very quickly, what's your favorite deal of the NHL entry draft from day 1 and day 2?
Chris, go. You want to go first?
Do I tell like which team won? Like who won the whole?
Just
Like
what your favorite trade was, like just in general.
I gotta say Kirby Dach and Alexander Romanov. Like it was in Montreal. I mean, I was listen when I thought that I thought they were trading the 4th overall. So like in the video of like the live, I was like, and then I was like, what? And then I was like, oh, okay, Kirby Dach. I was like, but it's I gotta say that's probably the coolest one. And it involves 3 teams, so that's why.
And for me, my favorite deal has to be the I know people are gonna hate on me for this, but I like the Tony DeAngelo one because it was so like out of nowhere, and Philly adding a guy like Tony DeAngelo, a guy with a character, and John Tortorella with a character. It's we're gonna see some fireworks, something very interesting this year, and I mean all the trades. Nothing was like a complete steal on both sides in terms of all the deals that happened, but there was clear losers and winners which we already went over, and that's all I have to say.
Can I say a trade that we didn't really talk about today, but we mentioned before? I'm gonna look. My favorite trade is the DeBrincat trade. I think Ottawa ran away with that deal. I know we didn't mention it in this video, but we talked about it in the previous video. To me, that's the favorite trade of the draft. I think Ottawa absolutely stole Alex DeBrincat, and if they sign him to an extension, that's just even better. Like that's my favorite deal, and yeah.
Well, I mean,
Ottawa won the deadline. Ottawa won the draft, in my opinion, with that move. But,
I mean, I wouldn't say they won the draft completely. I wasn't too crazy about who they selected or the draft picks, but I mean that deal was a good deal for them. But
you picked up the DeBrincat.
Chicago did have a surplus of first round picks, so in my opinion, they did some damage. Even though I would never have traded Kirby Dach and DeBrincat, but that's a story for another time. But guys, make sure to write in the comment section below what was your favorite trade, what was your least favorite trade, who won which deal, in terms of the 7 deals we spoke about, plus the Brinkat trade and the Gorgiev trade that we discussed in 2 separate videos before this video. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you when we discuss our experience at the NHL Entry Draft in Montreal, and then we'll be covering the free agency on July 13, which is next Wednesday. So, guys, we'll see you soon. Have a nice night.